Hello, and welcome to the Isles Nation podcast. I am Pete Truskowski, joined today by Matt Cangiani and Mike Rankiewski. How are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm
Doing
doing well. How are you, Mike?
I'm okay, Pete. Wasn't a little more calmed down now. We're a little bit since the game, but I guess we'll start talking about that shortly.
Yeah, about the game. That's why we're here. It's a post-game recap of the Islanders' 4-3 shootout loss to the league worst Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. The Islanders actually had a lead with less than 2 minutes to go, but they blew that, and they ended up losing in a shootout when they couldn't find the net in the shootout. They went 0 for 4. The Islanders came out to a 1-0 lead on a John Tavares goal, and the Leafs tied it. And the Leafs took a lead, and then Nicoletti with a beautiful goal tied it. Then with a little over 5 minutes left, Ryan Strome gave the Islanders the lead. And then on the penalty kill, after a horrendous play by Josh Bailey, which we'll get into, the Toronto Maple Leafs tied the game. Overtime, the Islanders were dominated in, and then they ended up losing in the shootout thanks to a goal by, I can't even pronounce this guy's name, Shishnikov, I believe it was.
Shoshanikov, whatever. We'll just say the Russian kid.
Shindikov, yeah.
Well,
The
the
Ru-
Russian guy.
the Russian
So,
kid.
so yeah, this is Thomas Grice's first start as the de facto starter for the club. So let's start with there. How do you guys think? Well, first of all, overall impressions on the game. What do you take out of it? Mike, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, clearly they sleptwalked through the game, and I think that was a fear of most people beforehand that this was going to be an emotional letdown game after Sunday's victory over the Rangers, Tuesday night's victory over the Penguins. And I don't want to say it was somewhat defensible they were going to sleepwalk, but again, I think realistically, I think most people kind of look at this at it as it's not going to be pretty, but let's just get 2 points and get the hell out of there, and that's the end of it. And who cares how it looks? And they were uh, a minute 13 away from actually doing that. They did not look good at all throughout the majority of the evening. Toronto absolutely looked like a team that wanted to win a hell of a lot more. The Islanders, for the most part, were content on just playing a conservative game. They didn't really try to do much offensively, and then when they did, Toronto did a very good job clogging up the neutral zone and essentially taking away the Islanders' transition game. So it was an ugly game, which was expected. I, I'm I'm just more annoyed that we'll get into the Bailey play or a little bit later, but I'm just annoyed because you hate to give up a lead with a minute to go in the game. Even in a game where you didn't play particularly well, you still had the lead. I know they were shorthanded at the time, but you just hate to give up such a late lead. And then the overtime, obviously, they had one or two good chances, and then it was pretty much Toronto the entire period. And then obviously the shootout, it was just looked like a very poor effort all around. So I'm not surprised that they didn't play a great game. I'm just more annoyed because when you have a lead with a minute to go, roughly, you, you hate to lose a game like that. I mean, that's pissing away a point, and yeah, it's only 1 point, but clearly, even if you go back to last year as an example, 1 point is the difference, or could be the difference between home ice and not home ice. So just a frustrating night. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but just a frustrating night to watch a game like that. I don't know, Matt. What do you think, Matt? Do you have similar thoughts, or what
Yeah,
else do you
I
take
have
away
some
from it?
pretty similar thoughts. I mean, they played 3 games in 4 nights. It's kind of expected the last game is going to be a little bit of a sleepwalk. It's a little disappointing that they couldn't pull out the 2 points after going at the end with a minute 14 left. Really, it's just kind of frustrating to lose that point because you said it did mean a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still looking good. We're two games in hand on the Rangers, 2 points behind, 6 points ahead of the Penguins with 1 game in hand. So it's not looking too bad, but definitely a frustrating loss after how well they've played the last 2 games before this.
Yeah, that's another point you brought that up, Matt. A lot was made of the Islanders' games in hand on teams around them. And tonight was one of those games in hand. And the thing they say about games in hand is they are worthless unless you win them. And a game in hand that you're using against the Toronto Maple Leafs, I know the Islanders played two emotional games and they've played a lot of hockey the last few days. And even last night on the recap podcast of the Penguins game, I called this team coming out flat today. I'm not surprised by the way it happened, but I mean, I retweeted a fellow Islander fan today, and the Islanders have won 7 out of the last 9 games, and those 2 losses are to the Edmonton Oilers and the Toronto Maple Leafs, arguably the 2 worst teams in hockey right now. So I mean, if you're gonna bank on these games in hand, you got to be able to pull out the 2 points, and that's what frustrates me the most, especially since as a now playoff team in this league, the Islanders have to absolutely learn how to close out games. If you're up with around the minute to go against one of the worst teams in the league, that is icing for all intents and purposes an AHL lineup. I mean, look up and down the lineup. Other than like Brooks Lake and Milan Mahalik, who are replacement level players in the NHL, their whole team belongs in the minor leagues except for a few young players. So I mean, if you're a playoff team and you want to make noise in the playoffs, you should not be blowing a lead to the Toronto Marlies with a minute left, no matter how tired you are. So that's what rubs me the wrong way. Of course, a thing that, as I said earlier, transpired was announced Yaroslav Halak's out for 6 weeks, and Thomas Greiss will take over as a starter. So tonight, faced 35 shots, stopped 32 of them, stopped 3 or 4 in the shootout. Overall impressions on Thomas Greiss's game tonight. Do you think he looked different in there? Maybe a little more nervous? Any change to his play?
You know, it's funny, Pete. I actually, yeah, you said his numbers, and they're not bad, his numbers. 32 for 35. I thought all night he looked a little bit off. I don't think he looked as comfortable. And again, to be fair, the team in front of him did not do him any favors, and that was a little frustrating as well. You had to figure that after the news of Halak's injury, that now as you mentioned, to a different mindset for Grice going forward. You'd want to see the team maybe rally a little bit more around him, put forth a better effort, especially in their own end. So that was, I think, I'm kind of willing to give Grice a pass tonight, but he definitely, I don't think, looked as comfortable and as solid as he has in the past. The goals he let up, the final one, it's a rebound, it's kind of a bang-bang play, to the extra attacker on late. Again, you kind of wish your defense there could have cleared the puck or at least put a body on a guy. So, again, he wasn't. To me, he wasn't the reason why they lost. He wasn't fantastic. He's obviously played better games, and he overall I thought he was okay. Wasn't great, wasn't bad by any stretch, but he played tonight like a backup, which hopefully this is a one-time thing. Obviously, you hope to see going forward he goes back to that 930 save percentage type of game that he was playing for the first 28 games of this season.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be a little nerve-wracking to find out that you're going to become the starter when it was more of a tandem the whole season. It's like a 1A, 1B type of situation. So, I definitely understand the nerves for tonight. I feel like he didn't play too bad overall, though. The team in front of him really didn't help out. But, I mean, he really did do his job for the most part. The rebound at the end, definitely a frustrating moment. But overall, I think he did a decent job, better than a lot of the other players on the ice tonight who just sleptwalk. So, I mean, I'll definitely give him a pass for tonight. I heard the statistic on Twitter that he hasn't lost in regulation since January 2nd, I believe it is, which is pretty impressive. Let's just hope he can shift into the starter position and just not get his head all psyched out with the new starter position.
You guys mentioned the players not really helping out in front of him. And a moment that turned this game on its head was with 3 minutes left in the third period. Josh Bailey has the puck on the sideboards near the defensive blue line, and he gets muscled off the puck and can't chip the puck out of the zone. The Leafs keep it in, turn it up. Nylander's open in the slot, and Ryan Strome has to put a hook on him to mitigate a scoring chance. Islanders go to the penalty kill. Leafs pull their goalie. The Leafs tie the game. Just I, I don't know. I don't know what it is with Josh Bailey, but I feel like this guy has his head somewhere where it shouldn't be half the time he's on the ice. I mean, he's
Well,
passing the puck when he shouldn't be shooting it. And today, you just got to chip the puck out of the zone. That's pee-wee level hockey stuff.
but that's been the knock on Bailey for the last several years. I think a lot of his detractors, and I am one of them. Too oftentimes he makes a very soft play, and I understand he's more, he has the mindset of a playmaker, more of a finesse player. I'm not even suggesting he needs to be throwing his body around and become a fourth line check-in type like Clutterbuck or Matt Martin. He's not that type of player, but you're right. In that situation, 3 minutes to go on the road, just hard off the boards. You know what? I think sometimes too these players get so ingrained that they don't want to take an icing call, that they try to get too cute with the puck and they kind of do a little bit of a love tap to try to get the puck out, as opposed to just kind of, you know what, be sure it gets out. If you ice the puck, what's the worst that can happen? Get a face off in the end. Trust that you have somebody on the ice who could win the draw and break out from there. So it's, yeah, he definitely wasn't good tonight. Clearly his lack of being able to clear the puck set up that third goal. But to be fair, how the Islanders were playing tonight, it wouldn't have shocked me even if there was no penalty there, if Toronto didn't tie it up anyway. It just seemed like the Islanders were hanging on for the majority of the third period. And usually when they play like that, it's only a matter of time before the opposition finds the back of the net.
Yeah, they pretty much dropped off in the middle of the third. They just lost. They were gassed, and pretty much the whole team was just gassed. So, I mean, it definitely was Bailey's play that lost them the game, or ultimately, in my opinion. But definitely, the whole team is at fault with how gassed and just the effort they gave at the end was just a little shocking. I thought they'd be able to at least be able to not just completely let go and let them just drive down and score. I mean, it's just a little frustrating with Bailey. He's been around for a while. I'd like to hope that he'd be able to do a little bit better than this, but I guess it is what it is at this point.
But with all that said, the Islanders did have a chance to win the game in the skills competition. And this brings me to one of my final points to recap this game. Will Jack Capuano ever grow the cojones to not use John Tavares in this shootout? Because I'm telling you, I can't watch it anymore. The guy comes in, it looks like he's going in there and he's looking for something to do. I think the best way to handle a shootout situation is knowing your move and then doing it. If the goalie stops, you tip your hat to the goalie. But I don't know. John comes in 2 miles per hour, tries to stick handle, which isn't his strong suit, and it just looks embarrassing. Like if you showed someone a John Tavares shootout attempt, and then right after that you told them he's a top 5-10 player in the league, they'd laugh in your face. I
You
mean,
know,
Jaromir Jagr was the same way when he was with the Rangers. He sucked at the shootout, and he told Tom Rennie, "Don't use me."
yeah, no, you're right. There are definitely some guys who they're not good shootout performers. And it's funny. I'll disagree with you where you said Tavares isn't a good stick handler. I think Tavares is a very good stick handler. The problem, I think, on his shootouts, as you mentioned, he comes in extremely slow, so it's easy for the goalie to essentially stay in front. But when he stick handles, he's not really stick handling wide. He's stick handling essentially like almost a drill right in front of his body. And if you're the goaltender, he doesn't have to move side to side at all. It's one thing if you're going slow, but you're stick handling almost like you're doing a bit of a loop and a curl. At least the goaltender has to move with you, and you can kind of catch him quickly if in mid stride as he's moving to the left, you can shoot it to the right or vice versa. But Tavares, he comes down extremely slow, as you mentioned, and he stick handles. Does 100 different stick handles right back and forth, but he doesn't do it. He does it in very tight space, and the goalie doesn't have to move. You would think that somebody, either on the coaching staff or even himself, I assume at some point he watches the video, would realize that move is not effective. It's worked maybe once in the last 10 opportunities he's tried, and going back to last year when he does that type of move. So, and
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think, and it's you had to figure in Toronto there was zero chance with a chance to win the game. There was zero chance Capiano was not going to at least give Tavares that opportunity.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same move every time, which is a little frustrating. JT has so much skill. I don't know why he just doesn't try and pull something else out of the bag. It's a little frustrating. I really don't think Cappy's just a creature of habit. I really don't think he's going to decide to put someone else to go ahead of Tavares, the captain. I really think he should. Perhaps maybe someone like Cal Clutterbuck. He's proved in the shootout pretty well with his wrist shot. I think that would definitely be a good thing to spice it up and hopefully win a couple shootouts.
Yeah. Final thoughts from you guys. I have three final thoughts from me. One, the league's worst power play went 2 for 4 against the league's best penalty kill tonight. That's one. Two was Nick Leddy scored another beautiful goal. Three, and this one will actually be credited to Leddy. It feels like this guy gets a goal taken away every single night. Three is Ryan Strome finding. I can't say he found the back of the net, but he found the puck across the goal line. So hopefully that gets him going. And four, another awful performance 3-on-3. This team is not built for that, in my opinion. Thankfully, there's no 3-on-3 in the playoffs. So you guys have any final thoughts to add?
I'm just hoping Grice can lose that little bit of an edge from becoming the starter in the next couple of games. That'll definitely be a huge key. Hopefully Bailey can somewhat be a little tougher on the puck in the last couple of minutes. And I mean, Letty definitely was great this game. Boychuk in the last couple of games has been pretty weak in his own zone, so hopefully he could tighten up his defense. That's pretty much all I have right now. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, it's funny, Pete, you mentioned about Strom actually, scoring tonight. I watched a little bit of the post game, and I saw Capuano's interview with Shannon, and she had mentioned about, said, hey, isn't it good that Ryan Strom, he's been struggling, he finally scored, and Capuano basically said, he's still not working hard enough, and he's got to do better, and he wasn't the only one. Capuano did say clearly tonight there were a lot of he didn't call out everyone by name, but clearly tonight, and anyone who watched could see it, there were a number of players who just did not put out a good performance tonight or a good effort tonight. So I guess I wouldn't be shocked if we see some lineup changes, for the next game. But I still think Strom. I mean, yeah, you hope it gets him going, at least a little more confident. But he scores the goal, and then 5 minutes later, he takes the penalty. Again, it wasn't all his fault, but he takes the hook and penalty. That obviously leads to the tying goal with a minute to go. So, final thought for me is it was a frustrating game. I expected them to have this type of effort. I was hoping by the third period they would have essentially woken up a little bit and maybe just realized, hey, we're a lot more talented than these guys, and let's just kind of, let's put our foot on their throats, get a couple goals, get out of here with 2 points, and we can obviously we'll call this a very successful 4-day period. They still, big picture, they won 7 of 9, including two very emotionally charged games between the Rangers and the Penguins the last 2 nights, so the last 2 games. So 5 out of 6 points over that 3-game stretch, which if you look at that way, it's a nice little run, but you hate to leave points on the table against a team like this, especially when you can almost figure that the last, the 2-3 matchup is going to be determined by a point or two. So hopefully, lesson learned, and put up a good effort next game, get 2 points, and then everyone forget about this.
Yep, the Islanders get a few days off now before their next game, which will be Saturday afternoon in Boston, I believe. So hopefully they get some practice in. Hopefully some players like Calvin DeHaan and Mikhail Grabowski get healthy. So yeah, until then, thanks for listening, and let's go Islanders.